Good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on where you are watching from. I hope you're keeping well, especially if you're in the UK right now where we've got this heat wave. Be sure to be staying hydrated and looking after you, your friends, and your family. But nonetheless, today I want to make this video less teacher, student, and more pow to pow. I received a comment the other day that reminded me of something that I haven't necessarily addressed in the way that I used to. Now, this comment was talking about identities. And of course, identities and what this comment is speaking about is the premise of manifestation and is what myself and every other teacher is trying to convey in their videos. But this comment reminded me of the way that I used to speak about it and like a perspective that I had on it that I haven't brought up in later videos. So I thank them for that. I receive hundreds of comments every single day, so I am going to paraphrase this one because I cannot remember it word for word. But it was essentially stating that once someone changes their identity, their natural baseline will shift. Using the example of, say, going to the gym, once you shift into the identity of someone who goes to the gym and who is the weight or muscle mass or can bench the X amount you want or whatever it is that your goal is in that moment, and you start thinking, feeling, and acting from that perspective, things come naturally. So, what most people do that struggle with manifestation is they stay the same version they are, trying to change it through manifestation. So once they've done their manifestation work, once they've come out the visual or come out the amazing meditation or come out the affirmations, they would go right back to, oh, look how awful everything is. It sucks. Because they're the same old version trying to create a change with their manifestation work. But once they're not manifesting, they go right back to the old self, which causes that frustration, which causes that cognitive dissonance in some cases, which causes burnout as well, because you're trying to do something as opposed to being that something. On the flip side, and this is the part that I used to try to convey in my videos, the person who shifts their identity into what they wish to be and understands how that version thinks, feels, and acts has a much easier time creating the journey to get there, as well as creating the end result at the end of the journey. Now, you'll have to read between the lines of that explanation to see the difference, but I'll try to side by side them to help you hopefully understand. The former, the person who is trying to manifest, is the same old them who just happens to do manifestation techniques. And once they come out of those manifestation techniques, they typically go right back to where they were. The person who is being their manifestation goes, if I had what I wanted, I would think this way, I would feel this way, and I would act this way. And they start thinking, feeling, and acting that way now where applicable. I say where applicable because, if using a specific person, let's say you're not quite in contact with your specific person right now, you probably can't show up at their house expecting a wild night, because that's not where your reality is laid up right now. But you can save Instagram posts to show them when you get back together, or get together in the first place, because that's not pushing the 3D. But you're looking at it as, I'll save this to show my partner, which is an identity of having them as your partner and an action you would take if you had them, for example. So the former is trying to manifest by being the old them who is just doing techniques or trying to do whatever. And the latter is, this is who I am. This is how I think because I have them, or I have the job or whatever. This is how I feel because I have them or the job or whatever. This is how I act because I have them, the job or whatever. And there's a big difference, because once the being person steps out of doing their conscious techniques, they don't go back to the old way, because they are the new version. They are identifying as the new version. Outside of claiming that you have the relationship, you have the relationship. So you don't then go looking around for the evidence, you don't get defeated, you don't go checking their WhatsApp status and things like that, because that's not what you would do if you had them. So with your manifestation process right now, I want you to look into your identity. And I do have a worksheet available. It is only £3 and it's recyclable. You can do it over and over again for different topics. I'll put the link down below so you can check it out. But I want you right now to consider, how would you think, how would you feel, and how would you act if you had what you want? What would that version of you be? Because right now you have a set of thoughts, feelings, and actions and awareness that keeps you where you are, which is why you're experiencing what you are. And the version of you who has what you want would have a different set of thoughts, feelings, and awareness and actions. So consider, what is the difference? What separates you from the version you desire to be? And once you have an understanding of that, then start consciously being that new version. Yes, the techniques are incredible. I've recommended techniques in almost every video I've ever posted. So I'm not saying that techniques are the problem, they're not. But outside of the techniques, what are you doing? Are you going back to the old you? Or are you committed to those techniques? Are you committed to what they are claiming and going forward accordingly? Once you understand how you would think, feel, and act once you had your desire, you can start consciously thinking, feeling, and acting in that way. Let me give you a very simple example to try and explain the difference. Someone who is manifesting, but being the old version, might do whatever, have a couple of spirals about how they've got no jobs or whatever, no interviews coming in, failing interviews, and then go for 20 minutes of the day, I have my dream job, I have my dream job, I have my dream job, I have my dream job. Someone who is being the identity might go, okay, if I had my job, I'd get up at 8. I'd put on this outfit, or, I'd do XYZ thing. I'm not saying you have to do each and every action you would do, but just for the purposes of this explanation, I would think about how amazing it is to be able to pay my bills. I would plan holidays, I'd plan trips, I'd plan a budget based on the amount that I want to earn and so on. So they start doing it. They wake up at 8, they shower, brush their teeth, have a good breakfast so that they can get through a work day, all while claiming and doing the manifestation work of, I have my dream job, I'm getting paid exceptionally well. They'd start budgeting under the new pretense of how much they earn, and so on. That last part, I did myself. Before I got my job, I budgeted as if I had the amount that I wanted to receive, and actually ended up getting a job that landed me that amount. And the budget was already there, it was wonderful, it was great, I loved it. So consider now, are you being the old you trying to manifest through techniques? Or are you being the new you who is shifting consciousness to be, do, or have that which you desire? And yes, the techniques help you do the latter. And I'm not saying that techniques are the problem. I'm not saying robotic affirmations or having a routine is a problem. I have those things. I'm saying, are you still being the you who has what you desire outside of doing the techniques? And if you're not, it's because you do not have the understanding of what the identity of you who has what you want truly is. So ask yourself, how would you think? How would you feel? How would you act if you had what you want? And then consciously start thinking, feeling, and acting in that way now, where necessary. And for those of you who have the argument, it's a valid argument, I think, before you understand manifestation, or before you have this perspective at least. I'm not going to say that you don't understand it, just maybe you haven't thought about it from this perspective. For those of you who say, if I had what I want, I wouldn't be affirming, yeah, you wouldn't. You wouldn't be sitting there all day, every day going, I have a relationship, I have a relationship, I have a relationship. But what you would be doing is naturally thinking about your person as though they are your partner. The affirmations are helping you do that prior to them being your partner. You would also make the affirmation of, in this case, I have a relationship, if you were asked. Are you single? No, I'm actually in a relationship with Katie. There you go. You have made that very statement, affirming the relationship, in that case with Katie. So just because you wouldn't loop those sentences over and over, the sentences are just helping you enter the consciousness of having what you want. When you have what you want, you're naturally in the consciousness of having what you want, which is why you don't have to proactively claim statements or visualizations, because you're naturally saying, I have them because I'm thinking about having dinner with my partner. Or if I'm asked if I'm single, I say no because I'm with insert person. So don't shy away from thinking, feeling, and acting as though you have it prior, or affirming it or visualizing it just because you wouldn't do that when you had it, because when you had it, things would be slightly different, but the consciousness would still be that of having them, just like the affirmations and the visualizations are trying to get you to do proactively. So from this moment forward, grab the worksheet if you want something that's already pre-written for you, or just get a pen and paper and write it down. But ask yourself, if you had what you want, doesn't matter if it's a house, doesn't matter if it's a certain appearance, specific person, money, job, a throuple, I couldn't give a fluff what you want. Understand what it is you want, and then say, what is the identity of that person? How do they think, feel, and act? And where can I start thinking, feeling, and acting in the same way now? And do so. And you'll find yourself shifting into that new version so smoothly with consistency. Obviously, you might get a little bit of resistance and a little bit of kickback because you're showing your mind something new. But with consistency, you will step into that new version like butter, smooth like butter. Now, I really hope this video has helped. I do apologize that I haven't brought up this idea of think, feel, and act in quite some time. I guess my thoughts have been kind of in a bit of a different direction. But I really hope this video has helped. If it has, drop me a like, drop me a comment, tell me a joke. I like to read the comments when there's something funny. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Click that bell icon so you don't miss future videos. And if you want one-on-one help or courses or products or services, me even manifesting for you, check my website out, which is down below. There's tons of availability. There's tons of like different options there for you to have a look at. And I'd be more than happy to help you if you're willing to help yourself, which is what coaching helps you do. It helps you get there clearer, faster, and more effectively. But thank you very much for being here with me today. Keep safe during this heat and during this current world economy, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.